We were hearing really from the very top, this wasn't necessarily her recollection.
Reputationally, for him, it was a massive turn-off. He became a joke.
Meghan Markle, behind Prince Harry's bombshell statement that has blown up peace talks with Buckingham Palace.
From the very first second the story broke, you could feel it, that electric, almost painful crackle that hits when something massive is shifting behind palace walls. Reporters froze mid-breath. Royal commentators were scrambling, gasping for air, and every single YouTube notification dinged like a siren because suddenly, out of nowhere, the palace, the same palace that thrives on silence.
Because, Prince Harry is refusing, it seems, to play along with Meghan Markle's games.
The same palace that answers crises with nothing more than a raised eyebrow and a tepid cup of Earl Grey, decided to speak. And when the palace speaks, you know damn well something has gone seriously wrong. The world woke up to a single phrase lighting up social feeds worldwide.
I think he's just living in the past. Meghan told him that and told us that he's still very much...
Sources confirmed the prince had reached an emotional breaking point. Nobody needed the headline spelled out. Everyone knew exactly which prince they meant. Harry. And the timing? Brutal. Just hours before, Meghan had appeared at another polished, high-profile conference, delivering yet another meticulously crafted speech about reclaiming narrative power. But this time, the delivery had an edge, a sharpness, a tension that made even casual viewers feel the strain, like she was barely keeping the facade together. People noticed the clipped tone, the tight, uneasy smile, the repeated references to being silenced, while standing in front of a room literally full of people who were there to listen for 40 minutes straight. Normally, that alone wouldn't trigger a palace response. What did? Something deeper, darker. According to fictional palace insiders, the tipping point came during Harry and Meghan's latest attempt to relaunch a glossy public campaign, the kind meant to polish and reclaim their image. But somewhere between staged photo ops, forced sincerity, and long, dramatic pauses meant to rebuild trust, something inside Harry finally snapped. Witnesses described him as visibly drained, emotionally frayed, like he'd rather vanish from the planet than be stuck there another second. Meanwhile, Meghan, polished, composed, relentless, kept pushing the talking points, correcting him mid-sentence, gripping his arm whenever he veered even slightly off script. And honestly, the tension radiated through the screen. Twitter exploded. "Why does he look like he's about to cry?" one user asked. "He looks trapped. This is hard to watch." 10 minutes later, the clip hit TikTok. 30 minutes later, 2 million views. By noon, it was everywhere. And then came the real shockwave. A palace aide, speaking in that classic icy, deadpan royal tone that's practically inbred, dropped a single, devastating line to the press. "The Duke has reached an emotional threshold. His well-being is now a priority concern." Nothing about Meghan, nothing accusatory. Just one line, but it screamed volumes. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about branding, PR storms, or podcast launches anymore. It was about Harry, the man, the son, the brother, and the undeniable fact he was cracking under the weight of it all. Even tabloid-hardened commentators paused, usually merciless, and echoed the same thought in countless ways. "He looks broken." That's when the palace, the old guard, the centuries-old machine, the meticulously choreographed institution quietly moved behind the scenes. You could almost hear the gears grinding, not in anger, not in revenge, but out of fear for one of their own. Sources claimed Harry reached out to a trusted confidant from his pre-Montecito life, and that's when the dam burst. Not some dramatic soap opera confession, but something far more human.
When they were at the softball and the kiss cam came on. And a lot of people have commented on this, but I want to comment on the specific technique. And the specific technique is misdirection and laughter. And it's an old technique.
"I feel overwhelmed," he admitted. "I feel lost. I can't breathe." And those words, insiders say, sent alarms echoing through palace corridors. Meanwhile, back in California, Meghan was reportedly furious at how the media twisted the footage. Her team scrambled to rewrite the narrative with precision. Harry, fine. The couple, unbothered. But the public wasn't buying the spin, because reactions weren't coming from tabloids anymore. Ordinary people, with no agenda, saw pain etched on a man's face. One body language expert, because yes, they pop up like mushrooms in moments like these, said the clip showed classic signs of emotional fatigue, noting Harry's slumped shoulders and the defeat radiating off him. Even Prince William's warning about Harry's relationship with Meghan was suddenly dissected, replayed, slowed down frame by frame.
Prince William was correct to warn Prince Harry about his relationship with Meghan Markle.
The world collectively held its breath. A prince once known for his mischievous charm now appeared like a shadow of himself. Meghan's supporters defended him online, insisting it was normal exhaustion. But even her fiercest defenders couldn't explain why the palace had suddenly stepped in. The institution doesn't speak to defend drama. They speak when vulnerability appears. They speak when danger looms. They speak when a prince seems to be slipping. And that's exactly what this looked like. A man stretched too thin, trapped in a life that doesn't fit, but impossible to escape without consequences. Late that night, another leak hit the press. Harry had withdrawn from an upcoming appearance, citing personal reasons. Huge, massive. The Sussex never cancels anything they can spin for publicity. Commentators were stunned. X, Twitter erupted. Theories multiplied by the second. Something real was happening. Something raw. The question everyone asked was the same. Had he finally had enough of being paraded around? Had Meghan pushed him too far? And what exactly did the palace know or fear that made them intervene now? Whatever broke inside Harry didn't happen overnight, and it's far from over, not even close. Magically getting better on their own while everyone else figures it out so he doesn't have to. That's life for him. And the moment Harry cancelled that appearance, the story didn't just ripple, it detonated, triggering a full-blown international earthquake. Phones buzzed non-stop. Morning shows scrapped topics mid-coffee. Royal reporters sputtered in shock. And while the world spiraled, Meghan made her move. She didn't wait. She didn't hesitate. She struck immediately with what insiders described as a controlled fury. Her team blasted out an urgent email insisting Harry was only resting, that the footage online was misleading, that the palace statement had been misinterpreted. Except, here's the problem. Nobody ever misinterprets a palace statement. Those words are carefully engineered, crafted line by a small army of PR wizards who dedicate their entire lives to calculating emotional fallout, down to the punctuation. If they hint that Harry is struggling, they mean exactly that, and everyone watching knows it. And more people weren't buying Meghan's spin. They never do. When a story feels raw, it cuts through any defense, no matter how polished. Still, Meghan doubled down. She popped up in front of cameras at a charity event, hyper-polished from head to toe. Hair flawless, smile calibrated, energy turned all the way up, the brightness at maximum, everything visually perfect. But her eyes? Oof. Even through the screen, viewers noticed a flicker of something wild, frustration simmering just beneath the glossy exterior. You could almost see the tension crackling around her, a storm contained in silk and designer fabric. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the palace machine was spinning faster than it had in years. A confidential meeting convened between William, senior advisors, and mental health specialists, not to strategize against Meghan, but to protect Harry. People forget, whatever drama exists, William still sees Harry as his little brother, a brother he grew up protecting, a brother he still worries about, even after everything that's happened, a brother he cannot let crumble under his own weight. Insiders whispered that William wanted to reach out directly, but advisors warned it could backfire, triggering more stress, more accusations, or the perception of interference. So instead, the palace orchestrated a public gesture, subtle, elegant, perfectly British. They released an old photo of the brothers at a charity event, arms around each other, smiling. No caption, no explanation, just a reminder of who Harry used to be. And the internet lost it. The royal olive branch lit up feeds everywhere. Is this a lifeline? Was the palace signalling support? Was Harry coming home? Hashtags exploded. Hashtag bring Harry home. Hashtag free Harry. Hashtag support the prince. Panic struck Meghan's camp because for the first time in a long, long while, public sympathy wasn't with her. It was with him. Her PR team scrambled into DEFCON 1. New photos magically appeared online showing Meghan and Harry laughing together. But eagle-eyed viewers noticed something. Harry's smile looked tight, forced, strangely strained. His hand placement seemed directed, as if someone quietly instructed him where to put it. Within minutes, the memes exploded. TikTok zoomed in on Harry's expression like FBI surveillance footage. Twitter roasted the lighting of the photo shoot. Instagram whispered the obvious. He looks checked out. And still, the palace wasn't done. A second insider leak hit the press, claiming Harry had expressed longing for stability, a homesickness for the UK. The phrasing didn't sound like Meghan's language. It didn't sound like Harry's either. It sounded deliberate, a very carefully crafted message, a warning shot across the Atlantic. Meghan reportedly knew it immediately. She stormed through the Montecito estate in full meltdown mode, demanding to know which staff members might be quietly feeding information to London. Tensions skyrocketed. Voices rose. The atmosphere was combustible, according to one fictional witness. Meanwhile, Harry slipped into his home office and shut the door behind him. Not to call Meghan's PR team, not to spin the story, not to plan damage control, but to call someone from the UK, someone who knew him before all this chaos. And after that call, the emotional dam finally broke. Sources whispered that Harry cried, not out of anger, not out of frustration, but pure, suffocating exhaustion. He confessed he felt torn between two worlds, between two identities, between two futures, and worst of all, between two loyalties that weighed him down like chains. When he finally walked back into the hallway, Meghan was standing there, arms crossed, waiting. "Are you with me?" she asked. "Or against me?" The question he had feared for years. And the world, the press, the palace, the internet, the entire global stage held its breath, because Harry's answer would shape everything that came next. Harry didn't answer Meghan immediately. In fact, he didn't answer at all. He walked past her, slow, numb steps, mind somewhere else entirely. And Meghan hated it more than any argument. Silence was her enemy. Silence meant she was no longer steering the scene, and for the first time since moving to America, she wasn't steering him either. She followed him down the hallway, frustration sharpening with every step. But before she could corner him, something else erupted. Louder, faster, far more dangerous. The leak. Someone, no one knows exactly who, provided a journalist with explosive details from Harry's emotional call to the UK. Not the full conversation, not the private substance, but enough to start a wildfire. Prince Harry has privately reached out for guidance as he navigates emotional strain. He is said to feel caught between roles and longing for steadiness. Senior royal aides are preparing for multiple possible outcomes. Those 3 lines were all it took. Within minutes, #PrayForHarry trended worldwide. Talk shows halted mid-segment. Even late-night comedians blinked, struggling to process. And Meghan, she felt the earthquake. Because this leak didn't paint her as a villain. It painted her as irrelevant. This wasn't Meghan versus the palace. It wasn't about PR strategy. It was entirely about Harry's emotional state. And he became the centre of a global wave of sympathy. She couldn't control her team. First denial, then reframing, then gentle downplaying, but it didn't matter. People were hungry for the story of a wounded prince grappling with 2 worlds. For once, the spotlight wasn't on Meghan, and that rattled her more than anything. While Meghan thrives on applause, Harry thrives on protection. And protection, that's exactly what the palace subtly offered that day. Behind closed doors, William reportedly paced the room, jaw tight, looking older than his years, not in anger, but in worry. Advisers debated protocol. Some urged caution, others decisive action. William wanted the truth. He wanted to know, is he safe? That question alone shook the room. Meanwhile, Meghan paced too, but for a completely different reason. She wasn't losing followers. She wasn't losing brand deals. She wasn't losing media control. She was losing narrative gravity. For the first time since the royal exit, the story wasn't orbiting her, and she wasn't about to let that continue. That evening, Meghan demanded an emergency call with her PR chiefs. What followed, according to fictional insiders, was intense. She didn't shout, she didn't cry, she didn't crumble. She strategized like a general planning a counterattack. "We're not letting them make him look weak," she snapped. "He's not unstable, he's not fragile. This is spin, and we fight it." But even her team knew this wasn't palace spin. This wasn't tabloid manipulation. This was Harry's reality, leaking through the cracks just as the court decision dropped. And so, while Meghan was plotting a media counterstrike, Harry was hiding in the garden alone. Sitting on the stone step near the olive trees, he stared into the Montecito dusk with a hollow, faraway look. The kind you don't fake. The kind you can't PR polish. This wasn't about royal protocol anymore. This wasn't about TV deals, podcast launches, or Meghan's brand. This was a man reaching the absolute limit of how much weight he could carry. A man balancing two worlds that kept threatening to collapse inward. And then the next blow landed. A royal source, anonymous, strategic, chillingly calm, gave one quiet sentence to a respected newspaper. There are growing concerns for the Duke's long-term well-being. That was it. One line. And it changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just gossip. This wasn't drama. It wasn't just royal intrigue. It was a mental health alarm being raised by the very institution itself. Meghan spent years accusing Hollywood of noticing. Political commentators noticed. Even people with zero interest in royals paused their scrolls. And Meghan, her worry sharpened into something fiercer. She wasn't just losing narrative control. She wasn't just losing public sympathy. She was losing something far scarier, the ability to predict Harry. She had no idea what he'd said on that call to the UK, no idea who he called afterward, no idea how much pressure he carried inside himself, no clue which parts of him were cracking, which parts were reaching out, or how close he was to snapping. And the palace, the palace smelled blood in the water, not maliciously, not gleefully, not politically, protectively. They moved quietly, subtly, like shadows lowering themselves between Harry and the storm. That night, 3 black cars slipped into a side entrance at Kensington. Senior advisors were summoned for late-night consultations. Nobody confirmed the topic, nobody denied it either. But one insider left the building at 3 a.m., pale-faced, whispering into their phone. It's worse than we thought. Harry woke before sunrise. Not because of noise, not because of stress, but because his phone had vibrated non-stop through the night. He didn't check any texts at first. He just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the muted glow leaking through the Montecito curtains. Meghan was still asleep, breathing evenly, unaware of the tidal wave about to hit them both. When Harry finally opened his messages, he didn't start with the celebrities, journalists, or agents trying to take the temperature. He opened a thread from someone he hadn't heard from in weeks. William, only 3 messages. Call me when you can. We're concerned. This is not a battle. We just want you safe. Harry's eyes lingered on that last line. Not angry, not accusatory, not strategic, just protective. That was the moment. Something inside him loosened like a buckle he hadn't realised was cinched too tightly. But before he could reply, the next blow hit. A major London outlet dropped an article at 6:02 a.m. UK time, midnight in California, and the headline lit up Harry's screen like a flare. Palace source, Harry at risk of collapse if tensions continue. No blame, no scandal, just a stark clinical warning. And mysteriously, nobody in the palace denied it. Harry exhaled slowly, his eyes closing. This was bigger than a feud, bigger than PR, bigger than Meghan's panic across the hallway. He could hear her stirring. He knew within minutes she'd be fully charged, ready to dive into crisis mode. And that terrified him. Not because she meant harm, but because he didn't have any more strength to give. When she finally walked into the kitchen, sunlight hitting her face, her expression darkened instantly. "You've seen the headline," she said. "Harry?" she repeated. "This is coordinated. They are framing you as unstable. They're circling. They want control." He shook his head. "No, they want me back. Sure, but they're not attacking." Meghan's jaw clenched. Worried is just another word for leverage. She wasn't yelling. That was the scary part. Her voice was calm, steady, almost surgical. The tone she used when she believed she alone could see the battlefield. Harry finally looked at her, really looked at her. "I just need a minute," he whispered. But Meghan wasn't wired for a minute. Not today. Not after the leaks, the headlines, the global sympathy erupting around her husband. A sympathy she couldn't control, shape, or redirect. She reached for her phone with the same determination she'd use for a major PR push. Harry knew what that meant. "Meghan, don't..." She didn't pause. "If I don't step in now, they'll own the story." "Let them," he murmured. 2 words that froze the room. That wasn't exhaustion speaking. That wasn't defeat. It was liberation. He wasn't choosing the palace over her. He wasn't choosing America over Britain. He wasn't choosing media silence over strategy. He was choosing peace. And peace was the one weapon. Meghan didn't know how to fight that. She set her phone down slowly. "You want them to win?" she whispered. "No," Harry said softly. "I just don't want to keep losing myself." That single line, raw, unfiltered, human, would later become the headline of 1,000 fictional talk shows, opinion panels, and royal analyst segments. But right now, it was only for her, and she hated how honest it was before either of them could continue. Harry's phone buzzed again. This time, it was his UK security liaison, a short, clipped message. "Incoming. Approved by senior office. Not hostile." Meghan inhaled sharply. "They're releasing something without coordinating with us." Harry swallowed. "They don't have to coordinate with us." And just like that, the shift became undeniable. 10 minutes later, Buckingham Palace posted a brief, carefully worded message across all official platforms. "The Duke of Sussex remains a cherished member of the family. We ask the public respectfully to give him the space and compassion he deserves as he manages private challenges. No shade, no accusations, just humanity." And that was the real power play. Not anger, not punishment, not revenge, kindness, weaponized in the most elegant way possible. Harry's eyes softened because for the first time in years, the palace wasn't treating him like a defector or a liability. They treated him like a son, a brother, a man who needed room to breathe. Social media exploded, pundits scrambled. Meghan's team started sending her frantic drafts for responses, but Harry just sat quietly, peacefully, as if that one statement had lifted the weight of 6 years off his shoulders. And for Meghan, that was the moment the ground finally cracked, because she realised something devastating. The palace wasn't fighting her anymore. They weren't trying to expose her. They weren't trying to silence her. They weren't even trying to pull Harry back. They were simply reminding the world and reminding him that he had a place he didn't have to defend, a place where he didn't have to perform, a place where he didn't have to spin, a place where he didn't have to be strong every second of every day. For the first time, Meghan wasn't just losing the narrative. She was losing Harry's fear, because once a man stops being afraid of disappointing you, he becomes very, very hard to control. The palace corridors buzzed like never before. Even the usually stoic aides whispered to one another, glancing over their shoulders, as if the walls themselves might leak secrets to the world. Harry's meltdown had gone beyond private anguish. It had become a full-blown spectacle, a living, breathing drama that no one in the royal family had anticipated. Courtiers exchanged anxious looks, some sympathetic, some bewildered, because no one had ever seen the Duke of Sussex unravel like this in front of the inner circle. Reports trickled in that Meghan had issued a series of new demands, unprecedented, audacious, and increasingly controlling toward staffers. Insiders described her as meticulous to the point of obsession. She was issuing instructions not just for appearances or speeches, but for Harry's schedule, interactions with family members, and even casual social outings. Sources claimed she reviewed every letter, call, and text Harry sent, allegedly insisting on approvals for conversations he once handled freely. Insiders whispered that Harry's once confident demeanour had eroded under the strain. It wasn't just about public image anymore. It was the constant pressure to comply, perform, and avoid what Meghan would perceive as errors. One insider revealed, "He's a shell of the man we knew. It's heartbreaking. You can see him trying to keep up, trying to smile, but the cracks are everywhere, and every time he slips, Meghan notices. Every time he says something off script, she pounces." The palace's response, as expected, was discreet but deliberate. Senior aides were called for emergency meetings. Quiet consultations with psychological experts familiar with royal pressures took place, and some counsellors suggested creating protective space for Harry, away from constant scrutiny. But the challenge wasn't just logistical, it was political. Any overt intervention risked escalating tension with Meghan, whose public narrative increasingly painted the royal family as oppressive, controlling, and archaic. Meanwhile, the media smelled blood. Royal correspondents, gossip columnists, and online influencers converged on any sign of strain, magnifying every instance of Harry's visible discomfort. A simple grimace, a distracted wave, or a brief lapse became viral overnight. Headlines screamed, "Duke in distress, royal family on edge." Social media users dissected every frame from public appearances, relentlessly analysing body language and facial expressions. The scrutiny only added to Harry's mounting pressure. For Meghan, it seemed confirmation that her influence and control was absolute. Even insiders noticed. Those closest to Harry admitted the tension was palpable. Private moments with family members became orchestrated, brief, and heavily monitored. Cousins, childhood friends, and long-time staff reportedly noted a stark change. He used to joke, laugh, and enjoy moments freely. Now, every interaction was measured, calculated, as if he were performing for her, not for himself or the family. Yet the drama wasn't confined to palace walls. International media outlets quickly picked up subtle leaks, fueling rumours of ultimatums and whispered threats of public statements. Each story painted Harry as trapped in an invisible cage, torn between loyalty, love, and the unyielding pressure of his circumstances. Public opinion predictably divided. Some expressed sympathy, framing it as a tragic love story gone wrong. Others criticised him for allowing manipulation, reflecting a growing discourse on personal responsibility versus influence inside Buckingham Palace. Senior staff faced a delicate balancing act. They had to maintain discretion, protect the Duke's well-being, and ensure any intervention did not escalate the situation. Advisers debated whether to confront Meghan directly, create private buffers for Harry, or stage temporary respites from public duties. No option seemed risk-free. "This isn't like dealing with a political adversary," one palace aide said. "This is someone who knows him intimately, understands his vulnerabilities, and has the means to apply pressure in ways we can't always see." The intensity of Meghan's control peaked during a private family gathering. Observers described Harry as physically and emotionally drained, attempting to participate while adhering to her precise expectations. Staffers recalled him muttering under his breath, trying to maintain composure but ultimately breaking down. When asked to conform to yet another rigid schedule, witnesses reported his hands shook, jaw tightened, and tears welled, a visible manifestation of internal conflict that had become unbearable. In these moments, the palace realised Harry's well-being was no longer private. It was a national concern. The public, conditioned by years of media portrayal, saw Meghan as a force capable of exerting unprecedented influence over her husband. The narrative was almost mythical, a royal prince, seemingly under the spell of a woman dictating every move. Senior aides escalated the matter to discussions with the king, who faced an unenviable position: intervene openly, risking Meghan spinning a narrative of intrusion and persecution, or do nothing and risk Harry's health, and by extension, the monarchy's stability. Strategists considered quiet interventions, private council sessions, neutral advisers, and carefully timed public appearances designed to restore confidence without confrontation. Meanwhile, Meghan's team remained steadfast. Advisers emphasised that every public interaction, media statement, and social appearance was meticulously orchestrated. Leaks were calculated, interviews strategically edited, and social media narratives tightly controlled. Insiders revealed that she viewed Harry's vulnerability not as weakness, but as tactical advantage, a way to reinforce her centrality to the couple's public perception. By this point, even close friends noticed the strain. Calls to confidants were shorter, laughter less frequent. Harry's spontaneity faded. Once a hallmark of charm, every smile now seemed rehearsed. One longtime family friend commented, "He's still Harry, but the spark is dimmer. Every interaction measured, every smile calculated. It's heartbreaking." As whispers of the meltdown circulated, the palace acted with centuries of discretion. Security was subtly increased. Advisers rotated through private sessions with Harry. Mechanisms were established to filter communications, ensuring potentially inflammatory messages never reached him unchecked. The goal was clear: contain the psychological impact while preventing further public spectacle. And yet, the public remained ravenous. Every anecdote became fodder, every glance in a public photo dissected. Social media exploded. Hashtags trended. Fan pages theorised. Commentary sections overflowed. The cause, intensity, and implications of Harry's visible breakdown became a global obsession. While the palace worked behind the scenes, the court of public opinion operated relentlessly, amplifying stakes and tension. By the end of this tumultuous period, it was clear the crisis had reached a critical point. Harry's breakdown was no longer private. It had evolved into a complex drama involving personal relationships, public perception, and the institution itself. Meghan's influence, whether protective, manipulative, or strategic, reshaped the narrative around the Duke, leaving insiders and the public questioning not just his role in the monarchy, but his autonomy. As aides and advisors navigated this precarious balance, one truth became undeniable. The royal family had entered uncharted territory. Harry's vulnerability, once confined to private moments, had become public spectacle. The palace's careful strategies were being tested like never before. The coming days promised further drama, difficult decisions, and potential revelations that could redefine the relationship between Meghan, Harry, and the institution itself. This was no ordinary family tension. It was a seismic shift, a collision of personal desire, public expectation, and institutional pressure. And in the eye of this storm was Harry's humanity. His fears, frustrations, and heartbreak were laid bare for all to see, forcing the palace to confront a reality that even centuries of protocol and tradition could not fully mitigate. If you found this story revealing, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment below. Share your thoughts on Harry's struggle, Meghan's influence, and the palace's delicate strategy, because the conversation isn't over yet.